It all started with clothes. I was scrolling one day when I saw Ralph Lauren's collection with the HBCUs Morehouse and Spelman called Oak Bluffs. It was stunning. Classic Americana, but rooted in black excellence. And it got me thinking about the Cape. I've been lucky to know the beauty of Cape Cod through the generosity of a family who took me there for many summers and gave me the fortune of living there for an entire year. For many years, they opened up that world to me. I've never had the privilege of visiting Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket, but I've had Cape summers, the kind where you rinse the salt off your skin at dusk under the outdoor shower, eat corn so sweet it doesn't need butter, and fall asleep to the sound of fans spinning and screen doors clinking because no one wanted to turn the AC back on. The year I lived there, I spent days cleaning up beaches, watching sunsets, and connecting with the local community in small but meaningful ways. And when I started reading more about Martha's Vineyard, about Oak Bluffs in particular, I felt something stir. Oak Bluffs has a history unlike anything else, and it struck me so much that in all this time that I had been spending on the Cape and all throughout New England, I had never heard of it. A place where black families built, gathered, celebrated, where black excellence didn't just survive, it thrived. I thought of DC, my home, the culture here, the pride, the legacy of leaders like President Obama, Dr. King, the energy of the HBCUs, the artistry, the brilliance that surrounds us every day. That's when I got curious. If this history lives here, what does it taste like? So of course, I took to the internet. I looked for restaurants, stories, really just anything to quench my thirst for this knowledge. And I stumbled upon something magical. A collection of community cookbooks from Oak Bluffs from their local library, spanning from the 1950s through the 1990s. Inside were screenshots of recipes that crossed generations and geographies, dishes that told stories, flavors rooted in heritage, migration, adaptation, and care. As I read, I kept thinking, this is American food. This is the story we've missed. Because for as long as this country's had a cuisine, it's been shaped brilliantly, quietly, powerfully by black hands, black minds, and black joy. So today, I'm making chowder, but really, I'm sharing a story that I think just needs a louder voice. So, let's talk about chowder. I've never actually made a chowder before. Clam chowder is one of my absolute favorites, but for some reason, I've never tried making it from scratch. Still, when I saw this recipe, simple, homey, full of salt pork, whitefish, I knew this was the one. It felt like New England. It tasted like something passed down on porches, brought to potlucks, stirred with memory. I didn't want to just recreate it though. I wanted to connect with it, to learn from it through cooking, to honor this piece of black culinary history, not by claiming it as mine, but by holding it with care and telling the story in my own way. I think food can do that. It can be a way of remembering, a way of showing reverence, a way of saying, I see this and it matters. So I gave this chowder a try with all the respect, love, and curiosity I could bring to the table. Welcome back to the table, everybody. We're going to be making a wonderful little historical recipe that I'm so excited. My one thing, there's something that you'll notice about a lot of historical recipes that's very consistent amongst all of them, and it's that they give about 8 words of instructions. Now, this recipe, I do have it here with me. It has approximately 7 lines of instructions. I don't know if we're supposed to do something separate together. It's very much confusing me. This is what it says. She says, okay, we're also substituting salt pork. The recipe calls for salt pork. When I was looking this up, salt pork is also known as white bacon. It's like pork belly. This is actually, it says it comes from the back part of pork, and I would either have to go and get it from like a butcher. I tried to check if they had it at Whole Foods and they didn't, so we're substituting just regular bacon. It basically says wait until salt pork is almost brown, then heave in the onions and sprinkle with pepper and parsley flakes until it shows green. Until what shows green? Throw all this in a frying pan until onions are done. I thought this was already in the frying pan. Leave enough water in just to cover potatoes. Is this in the frying pan or in a separate thing? When potatoes are almost done, dump codfish in. Pour out almost all the grease out of the salt pork. Add butter and milk. That makes me feel like we have potato fish water and onion bacon thing. Is that what you're thinking? I love old recipes, but it's so interesting how differently we cook now and how different recipes are. Also, I don't know if y'all have ever had a cookbook like this where it's like a neighborhood cookbook. When I was growing up, my godmother's church used to put one of these together where they kind of like poll the community and everyone adds in their favorite recipes. And not everyone is really great at writing recipes because it's really difficult. So the instructions sometimes go a little boku bananas. But I do have some favorite family recipes that come from a community cookbook. So that's why this just really sparked some joy in me. It really did. This whole thing, like the history, the connection, it's a wonderful story that I think needs more voice to it. So we are going to start by just chopping up some stuff. We're going to chop up our bacon, our onion, and we're going to chop the corn off the cob, and we're going to get that in a frying pan. How much bacon does it say? What is 2 handfuls? I'm doing 1 handful. I'm halving the recipe because I will say my one kind of rule is if I'm gonna make some type of seafood or fish, it's got to be eaten the same day unless it can be eaten cold. Like if I make shrimp can be eaten cold. I don't mind having leftover shrimp, but like this soup, I just don't, it's not going to reheat. So I'm going to do like 3 pieces. I also got the thick cut because I figured that would be more on par with what was supposed to be in this. How much potatoes are we doing? I'm going to do like 3 small ones. And it says peeled. But I think you'd want it diced in the soup. It doesn't say that, but we are really just living on a prayer here, aren't we? You know, some people have like gigantic cutting boards. Where do y'all get them things? I think I'm going to do kind of more like itty bitty bite-sized potatoes because that's what I like in soup. I don't like big honking potatoes. And all the pictures I looked up trying to find like authentic versions of this recipe, the potatoes look pretty small. I'm going to get these over some boiling water. It says like just enough to cover the potatoes, so I don't even know if this is going to be too much because the water will get like nice and starchy, but I don't know if that's the goal here. We're just trying our best. That looks fine. See? Just enough. Okay, on the stove. The one thing I want to say is that you want to make sure that the bacon gets really crispy. That way it doesn't get soggy in the soup. So make sure it gets nice and brown and crunchy, and you want to give it plenty of time to cook down with the onions and everything in the pot. After everything gets a little brown, then I added in the spices, and I stuck to the recipe for the most part. Like, we swapped out the bacon, but I added pepper and parsley flakes like it said to. But then I did add in a little bit of garlic powder for my own spin, and we also add corn later. One of the things that I found very interesting about this recipe is if you look at it, right below it on that page is another fish soup recipe, and it's called Fairfax fish soup, and it's from Virginia. And I think that's one of those cool things that kind of intercircles Martha's Vineyard with the DMV, and how this recipe is also so quintessentially Virginia. The fact that it has peanuts in it is just so funny to me. And also, like, have you ever seen peanuts in soup? I never have. I just thought that was so funny. And that's why we didn't make that one, because I didn't want to put peanuts in soup, honestly. It's like so yellow. When I was a kid, my mom had this little tool that she would use to help get the silks off of the corn. And it was like a yellow, soft bristle brush. And we kept it, our sink had like a faux drawer that popped out, and we kept it in there. And if when you were shucking corn, you could be the first one to it, then you could use it. It helped so much. It was so great. I don't think she still has it, nor do I think we will ever be able to find a replacement for it. But that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Corn is one of those things that I have just never mastered how to get it off the cob in a like clean and efficient way. The potatoes are like almost done, so I'm gonna add in my fish. I did have to get frozen cod because my grocery store did not have any fresh cod in the case, which I thought was a little weird. I think we just need to trim off some of this darker stuff because we are boiling this. We just want to make sure everything is really clean. We don't have any bloodlines or anything like that, which you can see we have here too. And anything like that's just going to make the fish kind of tough and nasty. So I'm just chopping it up into a few smaller size pieces, and then we're going to plop this down in the water with the potatoes till it kind of falls apart, you know. This recipe just says dump codfish in, and then it says add butter and milk at the end. I really feel I don't want to have too much water in this, so I'm adding the milk now so it can thicken up our soup a little. So I'm going to add in 2 cups of milk. So I'm giving this time to kind of simmer, let the fish cook, and then come up to temp. I'm just deciding if I want to add in the bacon and onions now. I feel like I do because I want the flavor to infuse, but it said to dump out any extra grease, so I'm just going to use a slotted spoon to add all this in so that any like excessive grease can get taken out. It's looking good. Okay, I'm just gonna let that simmer for a little. I'm gonna clean up. That's how simple this is. Don't you love when people used to just make things easy peasy like this? Says me, who just complained the whole time that they didn't give me enough instructions. I've never made fish soup. I love clam chowder. Been a clam chowder girly my whole life. Even when I was little, we used to buy canned clam chowder and I'd eat it, which now as an adult gives me the heebie-jeebies. I have always loved this kind of soup and I've never made it before. Love a lobster bisque? Oh man, don't even get me started. As the soup was finishing up, I kept coming back to what this whole process taught me. That food really is a way of documenting history, not just in the ingredients, but in the details we forget to look for. Like the crackers. There's a full page in this book just about common crackers. How they were soaked, toasted, broken into soup. How they were just a side note, but a whole ritual. A cultural marker for New Englanders. Passed down and adapted over generations. The kind of details that feel small until you realize it's everything. The more pages I read, the more I realized this cookbook wasn't just a collection of recipes. It was a community project, a collaboration, a way to make sure people's stories and names and contributions were remembered. Like the library volunteers, the Women's Institute, the people who kept things running behind the scenes year after year. And reading it as an outsider, someone who didn't grow up with this history, who's still learning, I just felt so grateful. Grateful that I could be invited into a story through a bowl of chowder. This dish grounded me in a place I've never been, but that I feel deeply connected to now. It reminded me why I love food, why I cook, and why telling stories like this, with care, is so important. It's so hot. This is delicious. And somehow it's warm, yet it tastes like summertime. It's actually kind of crazy. It actually makes me think of my favorite time of the year in New England, which is like September and October. It's like, it feels like summer, but it's so specific to that area that it's like warm and cozy, yet coastal. This is so nice how it kind of connects that feeling for me. Yet this is a recipe from somewhere I had never heard of, an area that I've never been, a person I've never met, and the recipe itself is almost 40 years old, which is kind of crazy. And still delicious. So thank y'all so much for watching. I'll see y'all at the table again soon. Bye!